Hello everyone, welcome to SISYA Class YouTube channel. So my name is Neet and I have done my post-graduation from IIT Bhubaneswar. I have over 6+ years of experience and we are going to start with a new series today. We are going to learn about different methods of separation in your chapter that you have in your NCERT for grade 6. Okay, so we are going to start from there. We are going to learn about different methods including winnowing, sieving, hand picking. We are going to understand it. Daily life examples, and in the end we are also going to solve questions based on them. So it will be a very interactive experience. We are going to solve questions along with learning the content with some real life examples, along with some different methods that you can use in your daily life. Some of the methods that you already know, we are going to use them as well. Okay, so let's begin everyone. Let's start with our session. Let me show you what we are going to discuss today. Okay, what are the topics we are going to cover today, and then we are going to see them one by one. Okay, so let's start everyone. Yes, everyone. So these are the 4 methods we are going to learn today. Okay, we are going to learn about hand picking, threshing, winnowing, and sieving. You will find them very simple also. We are going to learn it with the help of a lot of examples. Okay, so we are understanding what do we mean by a mixture first of all. Then how do we separate different components of the mixture? That is our aim. Okay, so in our very first session we are going to cover these 4, and then we will continue like that in the upcoming sessions. Okay everyone, let's start with our session. Let's see how do we separate different components of a mixture. Okay, so do you know who is Shinchan? You must watch these cartoons. So, and if you are like Shinchan, you are a picky eater, there is something that your mother has made, है ना? Some green vegetables wala curry, sabzi your mother has made. You don't like those peas in your curry. You don't want them, right? So you are a picky eater. You don't want to eat those green peas which are present in your vegetable. What will you do? You will pick them out, है ना? And you will eat the gravy part, because that part you obviously like. You don't like those green vegetables which are floating in your curry. So what are you doing everyone? You are picking out the unwanted things. For you those are green vegetables, not a good thing to do, but we do that, right? I also do that sometimes. So this is the story of Shinchan. Shinchan's misery is that he does not want to eat those green vegetables which are present in his food. So he is picking them out one by one. What is the method he is using? He is also separating out components from a mixture. Everyone, you also do that. You also separate out those components from your food. You are doing the hand picking technique. Let's see. Okay. So we are picking out the green peas that we don't want. Just like Shinchan, we are using the hand picking method. That means all those unwanted things that you don't want in your food or in your mixture, you can separate them out easily. Why? Because they are big enough that you can see them, right? And they are present in such small quantity that hand picking can work here. Not always you want to separate out the components of the mixture. You are going to use the hand picking technique based on what are present in your mixture, what type of components are there, based on size maybe, based on density maybe. You can decide the technique. So right now we are talking about the hand picking method that Shinchan uses and us also sometimes. Please see, right? If you don't like green vegetables, this is the way to eat them. We are not going to just leave the entire food, okay? We like the gravy. So we are going to pick out unwanted things from our food, as simple as that, right? So what are we doing actually everyone? We are separating out the components of the mixture. So our sabzi is also a mixture. Yes, your sabzi is also a mixture. You are picking out things from there. So what is a mixture everyone? You have different components which are part of your mixture. You are not mixing them in a definite proportion that I will mix it in 2:1 ratio, 1:2 ratio. There's nothing like that, right? There are different components in any ratio you want. You have mixed them all together and you can separate those components out by different methods. We are learning about those different methods, how we can separate out those components from the mixture. Okay, that is our aim, everyone. Okay. Hello, Acer. Hi. Hello, Vivian. So, mixing of two or more components from two different substances which are present in any proportion together, that we will call as a mixture, and we are trying to separate those components of the mixture by different methods. So we are going to learn about 4 such methods today: hand picking, sieving, threshing, and finally winnowing. Okay, let's start with the first one, everyone. Okay, and you must have seen this also in your home. Have you seen this thing in your home, everyone? That we are picking out stones from, let's say, rice, or we are picking out unwanted things from the dal. Your mother, your father, you must have seen them doing this thing. And sometimes they ask us also that, can you help us in picking out those stones and unwanted things which are present in the rice or dal? What are you doing there? They are giving you a very small proportion of that. Okay, they are not asking you to pick out the stones from the entire jar of rice. No, only a small portion that you are going to cook on that day. That is why hand picking works there. If you are trying to separate out stones from a very big mixture, then obviously it will take days and days. We are not going to follow that method in that scenario, right? It works for if your unwanted materials are very big, you can see them clearly, and you are given a very small portion of the mixture, then we can use this method. So for sure you must have seen this thing. This is what we are doing now: hand picking, removing the unwanted materials by hand itself because they are big enough to be identified and removed. Okay, please see, same thing we are doing here. We are hand picking the unwanted components directly from the mixture itself, and this is the simplest method that we can follow in order to separate out the components of the mixture. Okay, so method of picking by hand from a mixture such as small stones, maybe husk from the wheat. We will see that also there are other ways by which you can remove husk from wheat. This is the simplest method, right? And from rice, this is what we mean by hand picking, right? We all do that in our homes, and it is not going to work always, but for very large components of the mixture, yes, we can use this method. It is very, very simple. We can do that easily, right? What else is important when we are doing this technique? Any other important feature that we should know about if we are talking about hand picking? Yes, everyone, let's see. So it is done based on difference in size, maybe sometimes color, and the shape of the particles. Let's say if you are picking out stones from your rice, there is difference in size. Your stones are much bigger than the rice particles. First thing, they have different color also, right? You can easily see them. If there is some impurity that matches with your pure component, obviously it will be difficult to identify and remove them, right? Maybe there are some stones which are present in your rice which are exactly same in white color. It will be difficult to identify them, and maybe you will eat some of them, right? But if the stones are of different color, they are bigger in size, different than your rice particles, you can easily remove them. So what is the principle we are using here in hand picking? That we are going to choose this method to remove the unwanted particles if we are given a mixture. If you have difference in size, if you have difference in shape, and you have difference in color, any of these three matches, this criteria is followed, you can use hand picking there. And obviously for a very small portion of the mixture, this can work. Otherwise it is a very time taking process. You have to pick each and everything out one by one. It will take a lot of time, but you can do it easily without using any other external machine. So that's why everyone is able to do it. Okay, so principle is important. What are we using? Difference in size, difference in color, and difference in shape of the particles. this is the criteria we are using in order to separate out the components of the mixture. Okay. Hello Siva, hi. Hello Ramya. So I hope we are able to understand the principle behind it, because the principle is going to help you to identify which method we have to use in different scenarios. है ना? If you don't know the principle, आपको principle नहीं समझ में आया, then you will say that I can use hand picking here also, and here also. No, you have to understand at which for which type of mixture we can use this method. For some other different type of components where we have similar shape of unwanted particles, maybe similar size also, maybe similar color also, hand picking obviously will not work there, right? So if the particles to be removed are present in small quantities, otherwise, as I have told you, it is a very time-taking process, a very tiring process. You can't just sit there and remove particles one by one, right? It is waste of your energy, and it is waste of different other methods that we could have used at its place, right? So if they are present in small quantities and they can be easily picked by hand, they are large enough, you can easily see them, you can easily visualize them, yes, we are going to use hand picking, right? Hand picking proves to be a very convenient method. Only when the components that you are trying to separate, they are present in very small quantities. If we are saying that in equal amount we have mixed rice and those stones, obviously we are not going to follow the hand picking method there, because it will take us days to just get the pure rice. We have other methods we can employ in that scenario, right? So this was the very first method that we can use in order to separate out the components of the mixture. I hope you are able to understand it, and if you have any doubt, you can also ask me in the chat box. Okay. Now, can you answer this question, everyone? Based on what we have done, this is what we are going to follow, everyone, right? We are going to understand the concept, and then we are going to solve questions based on that. Very simple, easy peasy kind of question. Sometimes the level of the question will also improve once we are done with a certain portion. So can you answer this question, everyone? Can you all try? Which of the following best defines a mixture? You have just now learned about it. Option A is a substance formed by a chemical reaction. Is that a mixture? Mixing of two or more different substances together in any proportion. There is no definite proportion you have to follow. Option C, a pure substance that cannot be separated. We are saying that a mixture is a pure substance that you can't separate. And option 4, a solution where one substance dissolves in another. So what would be your correct answer, everyone? Yes, everyone. Can you all try? What would be the correct answer? Which of the following best defines a mixture? Option B, right? You have just now learnt about it. If you mix different substances together in any proportion, there is no definite ratio you have to follow. You are making a mixture. You are not forming a compound. You are not talking about a pure element. You are not talking about a chemical reaction here. You are just physically mixing different components together in any proportion. Mixing of stones with rice, with wheat or dal. You are not following any proportion there. You have just mixed them together. That would be your mixture, right? So the correct answer will be option B, everyone. Okay? All right. Hello, Pradeep. Okay, let's move on. Let's move to the next part. Now, have you seen this movie, everyone? Jab We Met. What are we trying to show here? Do you see the farm which is present behind them? Right? There is a wheat farm, right? So you all must eat bread. From where does it come from? Wheat, obviously. How do we get that? Those wheat seed that we roll into bread, that we roll into rotis. We have to separate them out from the stalk, right? From this crop, then only we can use it. So what are the different methods that farmers use in order to separate out your crop from the stalk that we see in the farm? We are trying to answer that question. Are we going to hand pick each and every seed from here? Obviously not. We are not going to do that. We have acres and acres of land. We don't have that much amount of time, and also we don't have that much amount of resources also to pick it out by hand. So do we have any other method by which we can separate it out? Yes, we have different ways by which you can separate it out. We are going to learn just that. Okay, so let's begin. Let's talk about the second method of separation. But before that, let's learn about one process. Okay, and what type of machine we use for that entire process, we will see that as well. Okay. Good evening, Munna. Very good evening. Now, see, what are we doing here? We are threshing. What is threshing? Let's find out, everyone. The process of separating grains from the stalks is known as threshing. So basically, these are your stalks. You need those grains, correct? So you have a method by which you can separate out the grains from the stalk, because we don't need this. We want the grains. We are going to use the grains later on, right? So the first step in that process is threshing. What we actually do in this process, you beat out the crop so that your grain comes out. There are different ways of doing it. You can do manual labor. It will take a lot of time, but yes, we can do that. And later on, we will learn about one machine that can do everything for you, right? For now, we are just trying to understand the process. So what is threshing, everyone? The process by which we can separate out the grains from the stalks is threshing. Okay, we have the grains. Do we get something else also along with the grains? Yes. When you do threshing, you get grains for sure, but along with that, it gives you husk. Now we don't want the husk. We only want the grains because we are going to make roti, bread, and so many different things from the wheat. I don't want the husk. So I have to separate out my grains from the husk. Yes, I have to. How should we proceed in that scenario? How can we separate out the grain from the husk? Let's find out, everyone, what are the methods, what are the ways by which we can separate out the grains from the husk easily. Okay, we are looking for the best method, convenient method. So you have different ways of doing that. Okay, I'm not saying that there is only one way by which you can separate it out. We have multiple ways, but we are looking for something convenient, that is cost effective, and that takes lesser amount of time. We are trying to identify the best method to do that. Okay, so we see. So the separated grains from your threshing will get mixed with the piles of husk. You don't want those piles of husk. You are just looking for grains, obviously. So how do we separate out the grains from the husk? That is our question. So let's see some methods by which we can do that. How we can separate out the grains from the husk. Try to understand one thing. Your grains are heavier and your husk, the particles which are left behind from threshing, they are lighter. So we are going to use this change or difference in density to separate out the components. In the first method, you have used the difference in size, the difference in shape, the difference in color as your benchmark, as your principle to separate out the components of the mixture. In the method that we are going to learn now, we are going to use the difference in the density, the mass of the unwanted material that we want to separate out from the mixture. This will be the principle, and please focus on the principle. Okay, please see. So, will the farmers handpick the grains to remove them from so much husk? Are the farmers going to one by one pick the grains just like we used to do in the first method? Obviously not, right? We don't have that much amount of time. We already know that. So what should we do in that scenario? Let's do one activity, everyone. Have you ever done this? Okay, you have chana, maybe moongfali, groundnuts, right? And you are trying to remove them from their cover. Okay, you do that, right? So what we do usually, what is the method we use there, right? How do we separate the chana, chickpeas from their outer covering, that is their hull or skin? Easily. One way is that you will pick the chana and you will remove the layer. One by one you are going to remove it. It will take so much amount of time. We are trying to enjoy the chanas. We are trying to eat them. We are not trying to do manual labor just to remove the cover. Okay. So what should we do then? You must have done that yourselves also. You blow it, right? Blowing air, it separates out your skin from the chickpeas, right? You must have done it. If not, please try to do that yourselves. It is very simple and the best way to remove the skin, right? And then you will just eat them directly after removing the skin, after removing the cover. So what we have done, we have used the difference in density, difference in mass between the chickpeas, that is your chana, and its cover to separate them. How are we doing such a thing? Simple enough. When you blow the wind, only your cover, which is lighter, is going to blow with the wind, not your chana or chickpeas that you have in your hand. If both of them have the same mass, they have the same density, and you blow them with wind, obviously both of them will blow away. Then what is the point? We are not trying to waste food here. We are just trying to separate out the cover, right? For that we are blowing the wind, so that your chickpeas, your chana, they stay behind, and your hull, your cover, which is lighter, it will blow away, and you will get back your chana that you can eat directly. So can we apply that same phenomena in order to separate out the grains also from the husk? Do we have to do it as is, or there is a different way by which we can proceed here? The principle remains the same. We are using the difference in density to separate out the components of the mixture, but what exactly are we doing here? What is the process we are using here? What is the name of that process? Let's find out. So how do you think farmers separate so many grains from the husk? We are trying to answer that question. We know already that we are going to use wind, right? We are going to use the density. These two things we are sure about, but we don't know the name of the process. So how are the farmers doing it? How are the farmers separating out the grains from the husk? What is the method they are using here? Let's find out. So, have you seen this particular, we call this soup. What is it? It is a bamboo tray. Okay, we call it soup. You must call it in a different way in your home language, but still, we call it soup. It is a bamboo tray. What is the use of this soup or bamboo tray? Just give us a second. We will be back. So yes, everyone, what were we talking about? We were trying to separate out the grains from the husk, right? And we were thinking about hand picking, which is a very time-taking process. We don't have that much amount of time, so hand picking is out of the picture. Then we have seen one activity by which we can separate out chickpeas from their cover just by blowing them in the wind. So we are going to use that same technique, but we are going to use a different method for that, because we have a lot of grains, right? We are not trying to eat all the grains in one go, so it will be more than what we can fit in our hand. So we are going to use a special equipment for that. What are we going to use, everyone? We are going to use this bamboo tray that we call soup. What is the purpose of taking that bamboo tray? What are we trying to achieve here? Let's find out, everyone. Okay, so first of all, traditionally a bamboo tray is used for separating the heavier and lighter components of a mixture. So the principle is same that we were talking about. We are using the difference in density, difference in mass to separate out the components of the mixture. Yes, we are. Difference in density, everyone. Or mass. This is the principle we are following here, and who will help us in that process? Wind will help us. So how to merge these two things together? What would be the name of the process that we are applying here? Let's see. Please see. This is winnowing. Can you see? We are using this fan. This fan is blowing the wind, and in the soup we have taken the grains. So the fan will blow the husk away, and your grains, they will fall on the ground. So you have used the two things we have talked about, difference in density and wind, to separate out the components of the mixture, everyone. This is what we call as winnowing. This is what we are talking about, and this is how you can separate out the husk from the grains. Okay, it is easy enough. It is cool also, right? We don't have to blow it ourselves. We are going to use fan for that purpose. And if you are in an open area, in an open field where the wind is blowing, right, you don't have to use a fan also. You can do it naturally as well. Okay, but here we are going to use the fan to help us in the process. Let's see what is this winnowing. So we can see a woman that is standing on a raised platform. Raised platform, we are using the soup, no? So we are blowing the wind. We are allowing the husk to move out. We are allowing the husk to blow away. So we are not going to do it by sitting on the ground. We are going to have a difference in the ground level and our grains. Why? Because we are trying to allow husk to go away, right? So that when the wind blows, your husk goes away and your grains fall on the ground, right? So that is why we have a raised platform, or we are doing it at a distance from the ground. Then what is the wind doing? It is blowing the husk away. Why is the husk being blown away? Why not the grains? Because the grains are heavier, the husk is lighter. We are using the difference in weight of husk and our grains to separate them out. Another method by which you can separate out the components of the mixture, we are using winnowing. The first method that we have learnt about, hand picking, right everyone? See, we are moving the bamboo tray which contains both grains in the direction of air or wind. So we have used air or wind, we have used the difference in density to separate out the components of the mixture. This is what we mean by winnowing. By doing the exact same thing here, we can take bamboo tray, or we can use a tray in which we have small holes. What is the purpose of using a tray which has small holes? So when we are going to shake it, your husk is going to blow away and your grains, they will fall down. As simple as that. We can use that as well, winnowing. Okay. So we are done with two methods now, right? Method of separating heavier and lighter components. We are using the principle of difference in mass, difference in density. Please remember the difference in density is the principle we are following here. That is how you can separate out your hand picking from winnowing, right? There the principle used was difference in color, difference in size or shape of the particles which we are trying to separate out. Okay, so this method of separating heavier and lighter components of a mixture by wind or by blowing air is what we call as winnowing. That is how you can separate out your grains from the husk, right everyone? Good evening, Rana. Very good evening. Now, we don't have to do these two processes separately. Which two process? The threshing that we have done in the beginning, in which we were separating out the grains from the stalk. I hope we remember. Threshing, the process of separation of this was threshing, right? So we have done threshing from, stalk. Right. So this is what we mean by threshing, process of separation of grains from the stalk. But the disadvantage was that when we were trying to remove the grains, the husk also come into the picture. So our final task is to remove the grains from the husk as well, right? So we are done with the first part, threshing. Then we have done another technique, winnowing, in which we separate out what? Grains from the husk. Okay, great. And what is the principle we have used here? The difference in that density. What are we using here? We are blowing wind, we are blowing air, and by that we can separate out the grains from the husk, right? So these two methods that you have employed separately, now because of technological advancement, you have everything in one single machine, everyone. What do we call them? Threshers. They do this entire thing in one go. Yes, we don't have to do anything, you don't have to do anything, right? So technological developments have resulted in developing of threshing machines. Directly they will help you out. You don't have to do any of these things. You will just pass on your grains along with these stalks in the thresher and it will separate it out for you. You just have to collect the grains after that. It is so simple for us now, right? But what is the principle we have seen that we can do ourselves? We have done threshing and after that winnowing, right? And after winnowing also, let's say there are certain unwanted components still present there along with our grains. Maybe some stones are there. Then you can do hand picking in the end. If your grains are not cleared out then also, then in the end we will do the hand picking. Rest everything we can remove easily, right? 3C, threshers separate the grains from their stalks and remove the husk also. Both things done by one simple machine. We are not going to do anything. Our thresher will do each and everything for us. Our task is to collect the grains. So helpful for us, right? So helpful for farmers, correct? Now, we have learned threshing, we have learned winnowing, we have also learned hand picking. Now, in the end, we will solve quiz questions also on the basis of that. I hope you are noting everything down. I hope you are able to understand everything because you have to know the order, the sequence of these steps also. We will solve one such question based on that. So, be ready, write it down so that you can answer that question in the end, everyone. Okay? So, let's move forward. These machines, they carry out threshing, that is beating out the grains that we were doing manually in the beginning, and winnowing, that is blowing away the husk, both at the same time. Everything we are doing at the same time so that we don't have to do anything manually in the end. Everything will be done by this thresher itself. You just have to add your stocks into this machine. Rest everything will be done by it. So we are now going to leave this entire thing alone. We have a thresher for that. But we should know about the process we can employ ourselves also. That was our aim, to separate out the components of the mixture, everyone. Right? Now, can you answer this question? The traditional bamboo tray that you were using in order to separate out the grain from the husk by blowing wind into it, when we don't have a thresher, what was the traditional equipment we were using, everyone? What was the name of that bamboo tray? You just have learnt about it. Can you answer this question, everyone? Is it sieve, a distiller, a soup, or a funnel? What is the name of the bamboo tray that you have employed in this method, everyone? We have taken help of soup, right? You have just now learnt about it. You have seen it as well, right? When we were blowing wind into it, correct? So, our correct answer is option number 3, that is soup. Okay, nice. Now, which method would you choose to separate out dry leaves blown into a basket of wheat grains? Just like you were separating out husk from your wheat grains, right? What was the principle you have used there? The difference in density, the difference in mass. So in here also, if you are trying to separate out dry leaves from your grains are heavier, your dry leaves are lighter. There is a difference in density. Which method can you employ here, everyone? Can you answer this question also? Very simple, based on the method we have learned just now. Heavier, and this is lighter. So in order to separate out something lighter from something heavier based on the difference in density, which method we are going to employ here? Please look at the options. Threshing, winnowing, hand picking, or evaporation. Which method would you use? That is the best method, right? You can hand pick the dry leaves also, you can do that. But what would be the most convenient, best method in order to separate out these dry leaves from your grains, everyone? Winnowing, based on difference in density. Threshing was separating out your grains, husk from the stalk. That was beating out the crops, right? We are talking about the next in line, the second method that we have employed, that is winnowing. Okay, so correct answer is option B. You just have learned about it, right? Let's move ahead. Let's talk about the process of separating grains from their stalks. You have just now answered it, everyone. We are talking about threshing here. We have just now learned about it. So this is how you have to learn. Whenever you read something, you have learned something from your chapter, some theory you have learned, right? You want to revise it. One thing is, you will read the theory once again. Another method that you can employ, once you have read it from your book, okay, you have read it very quickly, in a hurry, fine, you have revised it in 10 minutes, awesome. Now solve some questions based on it. Because in order to solve those questions, you have to memorize the information. But if you have learned it in a hurry, you have just gone through it once, you will not be able to answer those questions. But if you have read it diligently, you have given it time, then you will be able to answer those questions also, and you can memorize them easily as well. That I can relate this information to this particular concept. You will remember it for a longer period of time. So every time you learn some content, please solve 1-2 questions also on the basis of that, just like we are doing here, right? So the correct answer here will be the process of separating grains from their stalk, threshing. Option 3. We will learn about sieving also, don't worry. Alright, so what is the main principle behind winnowing? I told you, focus on the principle, focus on the principle. You are trying to separate out a lighter component from the heavier component, correct? You are blowing it in the wind, you are using a thresher for that. What are we basically doing? We are using wind to blow the lighter components away, and the heavier components will fall down. So what is the principle we have used? Is it difference in color we are using here? How will the wind identify that there is a difference in color in your two components? Obviously not. Are we using the difference in mass, weight, or density here? Yes, we are. The difference in mass, because the lighter components can blow away and the heavier components will fall down. We're using that method only, right? So this is for sure option B. We are not trying to dissolve it in anything, right? We are not using the difference in shape also. We have used it in order to separate it out by hand picking. For hand picking, the difference in shape can work, difference in color can work, but if we are trying to separate out components by winnowing, we are going to use the difference in mass, weight, or density. Okay, so the correct answer is option B, everyone. Alright, let's move to the next one. Now, What is this, everyone? You must have seen your parents do it, your mother or father. You are trying to make some food, right? So in the beginning, they will try to remove unwanted material from the floor, right? Maybe there are some small particles that you can't see very clearly. You cannot hand pick them because they are very small in size, right? So they use this sieve to separate out those components. So what are we doing here exactly, everyone? The smaller components will pass through the holes of that sieve and the bigger components will be left behind. So you have separated out the unwanted material that is very tiny, very fine, because it passes through the holes of the sieve. So we are trying to learn another method here, everyone, sieving. Okay, let's see what is it. Let's see. Right. What is sieving? Right? We are trying to separate out small, fine, unwanted material from our floor. So we are going to use a sieve for that. Right? So as you can see here, the holes are very fine. The holes are very thin. So it will not allow most of your floor particles, which are bigger in size, to pass through it. But the unwanted material, they will be left behind. So, sorry. It will not allow your unwanted material to move through that sieve. Only the bigger particles will go down. So what is left behind? Unwanted material. You can separate it out. This is sieving, right? You also must have done it. You are trying to separate out very fine small particles from bigger particles. So what are we using here? The difference in their size. What is the principle? This is what we have to focus on, right, everyone? The difference in size. The smaller particles okay, the smaller particles are separated out from the bigger particles by using this sieve. Okay, let's see this method. So sieving is used when the components of a solid mixture have different sizes. This was important. Hand picking, difference in size, difference in shape, difference in color. Winnowing, difference in mass, difference in weight, difference in density. Sieving, difference in size. We should focus on the principle we are following here, right? So if you have a solid mixture and it has different sizes, what is the method we can use to separate out those components? We can take help of sieving. As simple as that. Okay. So we use a sieve for this purpose. Sieving allows the fine floor particles to pass through the holes of the sieve, and your bigger particles which are not going through the holes, they will be left behind. As simple as that, right? So you have separated out two components based on size. This is your sieve. You can separate out components by using the sieve, not only a floor. Okay, that is one example we are taking. If the particle size is very big for the unwanted part, right? So you will leave those unwanted particles on the sieve, and the fine particles, they will go through the sieve. You can separate it out, you can use it easily. So what are the different ways we have learned today? We have learned about hand picking, we have seen threshing, we have seen winnowing, and finally we are talking about sieving. Another way by which we can separate out components of a solid mixture. Okay, I hope it is clear to everyone. Now we can use this same principle in construction sites also. This is a much larger sieve, but it follows the same exact principle that we use to separate out the floor from the unwanted material. They use it to separate out unwanted materials from the cement. So this kind of sieve is used in the construction sites, if you have seen it, right? That floor wala one, for sure you must have seen it in your homes, but we use the same principle there also, same exact method. So difference in size is our key principle here that we have to keep in mind, everyone. Okay. Now, Do you know about Dandi March, everyone? Do you know how we form salt from the sea water? Because the Britishers were applying so much tax on the salt that you can easily make yourselves. So Dandi March was done for that purpose only. So what exactly we did there? How can we separate out salt from the sea water? Was it that simple to get salt from the sea water? Yes, it is that simple. What is the principle we are using here? We are concerned with the principle here. We are using the process of evaporation. Do you know what is evaporation? In which you have certain liquid along with a solid component mix in it, right? You have a mixture, salt plus water, right? So you will allow your water to evaporate. Your salt obviously is not going anywhere. Your water will evaporate at room temperature in sunlight. You leave it for a period of time, the water will itself evaporate. You don't have to heat it. We are not talking about boiling. Although you can use boiling also, that will speed up the process. But if you allow only your surface particles to convert into vapors, we will call that as evaporation. The boiling is not required there. There is no heating involved in this process. So your salt will be left behind. Yes, this is the same method they have used in order to form salt from the seawater. Let's see the steps involved in this process. Then we will solve some quiz questions. Okay. So seawater, as we know, is a mixture of salts and some other unwanted substances that we have to purify later on. But for now, we are just trying to remove the liquid, right? All the solid components, we will worry about that later on. So we can't use it directly, obviously, right? We can't drink it directly as well because it has a lot of salts and minerals. We want to remove the water from there, right? That is our aim. So let's see how can we achieve that. So seawater is poured into shallow pits. This is the way by which you can separate out your salt from the seawater. Do you see these shallow pits? What do you mean by shallow pits? There is a large surface area. They are not very deep. Why are we using shallow pits? Why can't we use a huge container and fill it with seawater and hope it will evaporate? Because if we know the principle of evaporation, it is going to increase the rate if you increase the surface area, because only the surface particles are converting into vapors. So if you have a larger surface area, if it is spread out over a larger area, then it will evaporate faster. That is the idea behind shallow pits. It is not like that we are not doing it deliberately. We have just chosen shallow pits. No, it is very much deliberate. We want to increase the surface area. We want the liquid to evaporate faster. So that is why we have chosen the shallow pits that are not very deep. So the surface area is more. We have spread. We should spread the seawater over a larger area so that it evaporates faster. Okay, so this is the first thing we are doing. We have taken shallow pits and we have poured seawater there. Okay. What should we do next? Nothing. These pits are kept open to sunlight and air. You don't have to do anything. You are not going to heat it. You are not going to assist the process. Nothing you have to do. You just have to prepare those shallow pits and pour seawater there. That is your only task. Rest everything will be done by sunlight and air. So there is no help needed for this process. No help. What is the sunlight doing? It is heating up the water. What will happen on heating? It will evaporate. What is the wind doing? Wind is also helping the process. So if you talk about the ways by which you can increase the rate of evaporation, you can increase the surface area, you can increase the temperature, you can allow the wind to blow through that water. All of these parameters will increase the rate of evaporation and you can easily separate out your salt from the seawater. We have done just that. Okay, so these pits are kept open to sunlight and air and we are allowing the water to evaporate. What is left behind, everyone? All the salts and minerals which are present in the seawater. They are left behind. In the end, you can purify that solid mixture to take out your common salt NaCl that we use in our homes. This process is so simple. After a few days, the water completely evaporates, it dries up. What is left behind? Only salts and minerals. So maybe they have some impurities. Yes, for sure they would have some kind of impurity. Along with NaCl, they might have some other types of salts also that we don't want to eat. So we have to purify it further. That solid mixture which is left behind. The first part is easy peasy, right? You are just keeping it out in the sun and you are allowing the water to evaporate. A solid mixture is left behind. After evaporation, as you can see here, it will have NaCl, the salt we want to eat, the common salt that we eat, along with some other minerals also that we don't want. So we have to separate them out. We can do that by another method of purification, but for now we have removed the water from here. So this is another way by which you can separate out the components of the mixture. What is the name of this process, everyone? Evaporation. We are using the process of evaporation here, right? Common salt is separated from this mixture further by purification. Whatever minerals which are present there that we don't want, we can remove them, right? Our main purpose was separating the salt from seawater. We have used evaporation for that purpose. Okay, so I hope this part is clear. So let's summarize everything, everyone. What we have learned in today's session. First, we learned about what is a mixture, in which different components are mixed in. Different components are mixed in any proportion. Any proportion you can mix those components, you will call it a mixture. Now then we have learned about what are the different ways by which we can separate out those components of the mixture. So the first method that you have learned was hand picking. Manually you are separating out the unwanted material. What is the principle used there? Difference in size, difference in color, difference in shape. This was the idea behind hand picking. Then we have seen how to separate out grains. So we are first going to do the threshing, where we are going to beat the crop to remove it from the stalk. Now what is the disadvantage? Along with the grain, you will get the husk. You don't want the husk, so you want to separate that also. So we have used winnowing for that purpose, in which you blow the wind, the lighter components will flow away, and what is left behind, the heavier components, that is your grain. Next method by which you can separate the solid mixture, we have learned about sieving, right? So in sieving, the heavier particles will be left behind on the sieve, and your lighter flow particles, they will come down through the small holes that you have taken in the sieve. Okay, we can do that as well. And finally, we have learned about evaporation, by which we can separate out the salt from the seawater, right everyone? So can you answer this question now? Which of the following steps is water converted into vapor to obtain the dissolved solid? What is the method we have learned just now? To form salt from seawater, you have done that just now. We are using evaporation, obviously. Great. Another method we have learned today by which we can separate out the components of the mixture. Okay, what else? Sieving is used when components of a solid mixture differ in what? What was the principle behind sieving, everyone? Difference in size, na? You have learned that today. Not density, that was winnowing, not solubility, difference in size. Not color also. Color is not going to help us in sieving. We are just talking about the difference in size of the particles. That was sieving. Okay, nice. Now, if you want to learn more such amazing content that we have discussed today also, I hope you liked it. I hope you understood everything. So like that, we will continue in a few more sessions in which we are going to learn different methods of separation in our everyday life. We are going to cover that entire chapter. We will learn maths also in the next session that will go live at 5 p.m. So be ready for that. And you want to learn more about us, you can scan this QR code, download our app. We have more such amazing content waiting for you. Okay, so I hope you like the session. That is all from my side. We will continue with other methods in the next session, and please tune in at 5 p.m. for the math session also. Bye everyone. Have a great day.